The rain is falling, the lamp is lit, and the world can wait. Tonight, you're here, and that's all that matters. Subscribe if you'd like me to save you a seat again tomorrow. And tell me why you're listening tonight to sleep, to calm down, or just to feel something. The window that always stayed lit. It started with a window. Second floor, third from the left. A warm amber glow behind gauzy white curtains that never moved. Every night, without fail, it stayed lit, even long after the rest of the building dimmed into shadows. I used to notice it only in passing on the way home from late shifts, walking under the hush of the street lamps, coat collar turned up, keys clenched in a tired hand. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe someone forgot to turn the light off. Maybe an old lamp stuck in the on position. But then I started seeing it every night for weeks, then months. Same window, same light, never flickering, never changing. And slowly, without realizing it, I began to look for it. Like you check for the moon or the sound of your own footsteps on familiar pavement. There was something comforting in its sameness. In a world that kept shifting, people leaving, shops closing, the air growing colder, that one square of golden light stayed still. I didn't mention it to anyone. It felt private, somehow, like a secret between the building and me. The street itself was old, cobblestones in some parts, the kind that make bikes rattle and shoes scuff. The building number 42 had ivy up one side and windows that sagged slightly in their frames. I never knew who lived inside. I lived across the street, third floor, apartment 3C, just high enough to see into the world, but low enough to stay unseen. Most nights, I'd make tea chamomile, always, and sit near the window. Not directly in front, just close enough to glance at the lit square without looking like I was staring. It became part of the rhythm. Put kettle on, change into soft clothes, light the small lamp beside the chair, sip, glance, sip again, and still the window glowed. Some nights I wondered who was behind it. An old man reading newspapers from decades past? A young woman writing letters she'd never send? A cat curled on a radiator while a radio hummed softly in the corner? I never saw movement, never a shadow, never a flicker, just light, constant and quiet. And somehow, that made me feel less alone. Like someone else was awake in the night with me, even if we never spoke, especially because we never spoke. It was enough, for a while, to know that beyond all the locked doors and drawn blinds, one window kept shining, like a pulse, like a quiet yes in the middle of everything uncertain. And I found myself thinking not every night, but more often than not, are you still there? And though the answer never came in words, the glow remained, steady, unmoving, present. And that, somehow, was answer enough. One evening, not long after the first frost, I decided to take a different path home. Normally, I would cross to my side of the street and head straight up the narrow stairs to 3C. But that night, I kept to the building side, the one with the window. I told myself I just wanted to see it from another angle. Maybe the curtains would shift. Maybe I'd catch a shadow. But when I reached the sidewalk in front of number 42, I didn't move right away. I just stood there, hands in my coat pockets, looking up. The window was lit, as always. Soft yellow light, like the kind you find in old photographs. But standing beneath it was different. It felt heavier, not ominous, just fuller, like I was standing in the echo of something. I tilted my head and listened. The street was quiet. A passing car 2 blocks away. A dog's bark muffled by distance, and then faint, almost too faint to catch music. Not loud, not coming from speakers or a TV, just a voice, singing, old and slow. A woman's voice maybe, but worn with time. The kind of voice that cracks not from strain, but from remembering. I couldn't place the song at first. It was so quiet that I had to hold my breath just to hear it. But then a phrase drifted down, where the lilacs bend, and something in me clicked. I had heard that song only once before, when I was a child. My grandmother used to hum it while folding towels. I never knew the title, only that line. It had stayed with me for reasons I never questioned. And now, here it was again, falling softly from a window that never slept. I didn't move. I didn't look around. I just let the moment wrap around me. I thought about how strange it was that the quietest things find their way back. That a melody lost to time can float down through the night like it had never left. The voice faded after a while. Or maybe the window closed. Or maybe that was all there was. One line, one visit, and still the light stayed on. I looked up and whispered, almost without meaning to, "Thank you." Not sure who I was thanking, not sure for what. Maybe for the song, maybe for remembering it, maybe just for the feeling of not being the only one awake in a world that so often forgets to listen. Then I turned and walked back to my apartment, steps slower than usual, the phrase echoing gently in my head, where the lilacs bend. I didn't know the rest, but maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe that one line was all I needed to carry. It became a kind of ritual, a quiet offering. Every few days, I'd pass by the window, not always stopping, just slowing, and leave something small on the bench beneath it. Not gifts, not grand gestures, just notes. Folded pieces of paper the size of matchbooks. On the first, I wrote only, "The song stayed with me." I didn't sign it, didn't expect it to be found. I simply tucked it into the crack in the bench and kept walking. The next day, the note was gone. I told myself it could have been the wind, or a child, or the city's quiet hunger for things left behind. But I returned anyway. A few days later, another note. "Some nights, your light is the softest thing I see." Again, no signature, no expectation, just a whisper left behind in case someone else was listening. I began to notice things too, not changes in the window, but around it. A potted plant appeared on the sill, small, green, and new. The curtains were adjusted one night, slightly parted, just enough to see the outline of a lamp. Then one morning, a paper crane sat folded on the bench, white, precise, its wings tucked tight like it had been made with care. I didn't touch it, just looked at it for a moment, smiled, and walked on. The next evening, I left a small note beneath it. For whoever folded this, you're seen. A kind of slow conversation bloomed, quiet and unnamed. Sometimes there were days with no exchange. Sometimes only the light was there. But that too was a reply. And in all of it, I felt something shift inside me. Not excitement, not expectation, just calm, as if that steady light had given me permission to soften in a world that always asked me to harden. One night, after a difficult day I didn't want to explain, I sat on the bench longer than usual. No note, no offering, just me. I didn't look up at the window this time. I looked down at my hands, at the space between my knees, at the cracks in the pavement. I must have sat there for nearly an hour, listening to the wind move through the alley, the occasional rustle of leaves. Just as I was about to rise, something above me shifted. The curtain in the window swayed gently, pulled aside. Only a little, just enough for a warm hand to reach out and place the paper crane back onto the windowsill slowly, carefully, as if returning a memory to its place. I didn't see a face. I didn't need to. The gesture was more than enough. I smiled to myself and whispered, barely audible, "You're safe here." And though the light remained unchanged, I swear the night around me felt warmer, like something in the dark had set it back. It was a Tuesday when the light didn't come on. At first, I thought I was early. Sometimes I passed the window before dusk had fully settled, before the street lamps began their faint orange hum. But this time, the sky was already dim. That soft, dusty blue of evening had deepened. Still darkness. I paused at the edge of the sidewalk, hands in pockets, staring up at the window that had until now never missed a night. Nothing. Curtains still drawn, but no glow behind them. No soft shape of the lamp. Just a square of quiet. I waited. 5 minutes. Then 10. A slow chill crept in behind my ribs. Not fear, just absence. The kind that makes your ears ring, as if silence had suddenly gained weight. I walked to the bench, sat down, and stared at the window. Told myself maybe they weren't home. Maybe the bulb had gone out. Maybe someone finally fell asleep before they meant to. But the stillness felt different. Not accidental, not rushed. It was the kind of stillness that comes with endings or changes. The paper crane was still there on the sill, unmoved. A small shape of permanence in a square now empty of light. I didn't leave a note that night. I didn't have the words. I just sat with the absence. Let it settle beside me, and in that stillness, a quiet understanding began to form. The light had always been a gift, not a promise, not a guarantee. And maybe this, too, this darkness was part of the conversation, the part we don't get to write. I stayed until the wind picked up, lifting the hem of my coat, rustling the trees. Then, quietly, I stood, whispered, "Thank you," toward the window, not knowing if anyone could hear, and walked home slower than usual. That night, my own window stayed dark. I didn't turn on my lamp. I didn't make tea. I simply sat in the quiet, breathing gently, letting the darkness be what it was. Not a void, not a loss, just a space where something used to be. And somehow, even that held warmth, like the echo of a voice you can't remember but still believe in. 3 days passed. 3 nights of no light in the window. I stopped expecting it, not out of bitterness, but because something in me had adjusted, like how your eyes learn to see in low light. I still walked by, still paused for a breath, but I no longer searched the window for a glow. I simply acknowledged it, like a closed book still resting on a shelf. Then, on the 4th morning, there was an envelope waiting in my mailbox. No name, no return address, just my apartment number 3C, written in soft, slanted handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it slowly. Inside, one piece of paper, neatly folded, not notebook paper, not lined, just smooth ivory white, and written in the middle in the same delicate hand. You never imagined how much the light meant to me, too. That was all. No signature, no further message, but the paper I recognized, the feel, the exact kind I use for my notes, the grain, the weight, the slight texture when you ran your thumb over it. It was mine, or rather, it had come from the same place. My breath caught. The quiet in the room pressed inward. That one sentence, gentle and careful, undid something inside me. Not in a sharp way, more like a knot loosening, like tension that had been held too long finally sighing out. I turned the paper over. Nothing on the back, nothing hidden. Just that one sentence, floating in the center like a candle in still water. I sat at the small kitchen table, holding it for a long while. Then, slowly, I placed it under the small ceramic dish I kept near the window, the one where I kept spare buttons, paper clips, and odd things I never threw away. It belonged there now, part of the small, quiet archive of moments I never wanted to lose. That night, I walked past the window again. Still no light, still no movement, but the crane was gone. Removed gently, I could tell. No torn edges or stray feathers of paper. Just an empty sill, clean and still. I stood there a little longer this time, not waiting, just present. And in the soft hum of the evening, with streetlights flickering above, and the hush of distant footsteps behind me, I said softly, "Meant more than I can say." And the silence once again stayed, but it no longer felt like absence. It felt like someone listening. The next evening, I brought a pen. Not a special one, just the one I kept in the inside pocket of my coat, half dried from months of neglect. I walked slowly, hands in my pockets, the paper already folded once in my palm. I had written it earlier, sitting at the kitchen counter, unsure if I would actually leave it behind. The note was short, just one sentence, and this time, a name. Not a full one, no last name, just mine. Thank you for the light. It meant more than you know. Daniel. It felt strange to write it. I had never signed the others, never wanted to. But this one asked for it not loudly, but with that soft pressure of something unfinished, like a breath held just a second too long. When I reached the bench, the street was empty. The wind had picked up slightly, tugging gently at my coat, brushing dry leaves across the sidewalk. The window above was still dark, still closed, but that no longer unsettled me. I didn't expect the light anymore. I simply honored it. I slid the note into the same crack where I had placed the very first one long ago. It fit there easily. like it remembered the shape. I sat on the bench a moment after, hands resting on my knees, breathing in the crispness of evening. I wasn't waiting for anything. I just needed to sit still with the fact that I had placed a part of myself in the open, not demanding an answer, not hoping for one, just offering something true. The street was quiet. No footsteps, no voices. Only the soft rustle of city air shifting through fences and trees. I looked up at the window. Imagined for a moment a hand behind the curtain, unseen but near. I whispered, "That's me. That's who's been here." Then I stood, walked away, and something in me felt lighter, not because I had been seen, but because I had chosen not to stay invisible. That night, back in my apartment, I didn't reach for the lamp. I let the dark settle in slowly, filling the room like water in a quiet cup. I thought about how small a name is, just a few letters, and how heavy it can feel when you finally let it be known. Not as a signature, not as a label, just as a soft echo of presence. A shape someone else might someday remember. Daniel. That was enough. I didn't walk by for a few days. Not because I didn't want to, but because something in me needed the distance, like stepping back from a painting just to see what's actually there. I went about my routine. Work, tea, sleep. But the space around those things felt different now. Like I'd released something. Like the weight I'd been carrying wasn't heavier anymore, just real. And I had named it. On the fourth night, without planning to, I found myself again turning the familiar corner. Same street, same bench, same wind tugging softly at the evening. And as I looked up, I stopped mid-step. The window, the one that had stayed dark for nights now, was lit again. But this time, it wasn't alone. A second light in the window directly beside it glowed as well. Two soft squares of amber, side by side, like punctuation. I stood on the sidewalk, still and quiet, the hum of the city falling away. There was no movement behind the curtains, no figure, just the twin glows flickering faintly like old lanterns in a dark wood. I felt something open in my chest. Not wonder that had passed, not grief that had softened, something simpler. The feeling of being acknowledged, not with noise, not with letters, but with shared stillness. I sat on the bench, not to leave a note this time, but just to be there, to bear witness. The two windows remained lit for a long while, long enough for the chill to settle into the stone beneath me, long enough for me to remember the first night I had noticed just one of them, how far away that felt now. I smiled without realizing, whispered, "I see you too." Then I looked around not for a sign, but for a sense of place, of how, over time, we become part of the spaces we move through, how the street remembers us, how light answers light. Eventually, one of the windows dimmed, the second one. A few minutes later, the first followed. I stayed a little longer in the dark, not to wait, just to honor what had been given. Two lights, two signals, and something between them quiet and warm that asked for nothing more than presence. The moving truck came on a Thursday morning, early. The kind of quiet early where the city still holds its breath and the birds aren't sure if they should start. I had packed lightly. Most of my life fit into a few worn boxes and one too heavy coat. I didn't tell many people I was leaving, not out of secrecy, just a sense that some departures don't need announcements. They only need a door closing gently behind you. But before I left, I took one final walk. Same coat, same street. My hands were empty this time, no note, no gift, except for one folded piece of paper in my pocket. Not addressed to anyone, not signed, just something I wanted to leave behind. The bench beneath the window was there as always, waiting without urgency. And above it, the window still lit, still glowing with that soft golden quiet I had first noticed all those weeks ago. The second light beside it was gone tonight. Just the one remained, as if it was waiting to say goodbye. I sat for a moment, let the evening air settle on my shoulders, looked up once, not to stare, just to think. Then, gently, I placed the note on the bench, not wedged into the crack like before, just lying flat, visible to anyone who might pass. On it, I had written, "This light stayed on when nothing else did. If you're sitting here, you're not alone. Someone was here before you, and someone will be here after. Breathe. You're allowed to." I didn't linger. I stood slowly, placed a hand on the cold metal of the bench's edge and whispered, "Thank you for being real." Then I turned, walked away, not rushed, not heavy, just ready. As I crossed the street one last time, I didn't look back at the window. Not because I didn't care, but because I trusted it would still be there, glowing in the quiet, holding space for someone else. I boarded the train that afternoon, sat by the window, closed my eyes. Somewhere, a light stayed on. And this time, I didn't wonder who it was for. I knew it had always been for anyone who needed it. And tonight, it would be for someone new.